What if I told you that literally everything you see right now is a complete illusion? Seriously, what if evolution, the very engine that built our species, actually hid reality from us instead of revealing it? Could the world you experience every single day be less like physical reality and more like a computer's desktop interface, hiding the raw code underneath? Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving deep into cognitive science and the philosophy of mind. We're going to unpack an intense, fascinating academic critique by researcher Joseph Mattis, who challenges the explosive claims about human perception found in Donald Hoffman's book, The Case Against Reality.
So let's jump right into the big question. Does evolution actually hide objective reality from us just to keep us alive? We all operate on this basic, unquestioned assumption that our senses evolved to show us the world exactly as it is. But what if that is completely mistaken? Today, we are pitting two incredible scientific perspectives against each other to figure out if human perception is a genuine window into the truth, or if it's just a species-specific survival tool, a handy user interface designed to hide the underlying matrix of reality.
Here's our roadmap for this exploration. First, we'll cover the case against reality. Second, the self-defeating paradox. Third, fixed simulations. Fourth, coevolution. And finally, does fitness beat truth?
Let's start with part one, the case against reality.
To really grasp this debate, we first have to understand cognitive scientist Donald Hoffman's wildly provocative claim. He argues that evolution favors pure survival fitness over seeing the truth. Think about your computer desktop for a second. The icon for a folder might be a little blue rectangle, but is the actual file inside the computer blue and rectangular? No, of course not. It's a complex string of ones and zeros, magnetic fields, and microscopic voltages. The icon is just an interface, right? It hides the mind-bending complexity so you can actually use the computer. Well, Hoffman proposes that our perception of space, time, and physical objects works exactly like that desktop icon. It's an interface crafted by natural selection solely to help us survive, not to show us objective reality. In academic circles, this idea is known as the EAAR, or the evolutionary argument against realism. It basically suggests that any perceptual system tied to objective truth is doomed to fail. According to this model, an organism that wastes cognitive energy processing all the intricate, true details of reality is going to be outcompeted. The winner will always be the organism that only processes simple, actionable data geared entirely toward reproduction and survival.
And that brings us to the mathematical foundation of Hoffman's argument, the FBT theorem, which stands for fitness beats truth. Using evolutionary game theory, this theorem argues that fitness will always be truth in the game of life. If a truth strategy tries to estimate the actual state of the world, and a fitness-only strategy completely ignores the truth to just grab the maximum payoff, the math theoretically shows the truth strategy going extinct. But is that really the whole story? If our senses are entirely untrustworthy, what does that mean for science, consciousness, and the nature of reality itself?
That takes us to part two, the self-defeating paradox.
Here is the massive catch. The first major hurdle for Hoffman's theory is a brutal logical collision, which researcher Joseph Mattis expertly points out. On one side, we have the very foundation of Hoffman's argument, which is that evolutionary biology is true. But on the other side, his conclusion is that human perception is 100% false. Do you see the problem here? If we see none of reality as it is, how can we possibly trust the empirical science of evolutionary biology? Evolutionary biology is based on human observation. We look at fossils, we sequence DNA, we perceive these things. If our perception is just a fake user interface, then the empirical evidence for evolution must also be part of that fake interface.
Now, Hoffman tries to defend this by comparing his theory to Gödel's incompleteness theorems or even Einstein's relativity, arguing that, hey, scientific theories can naturally expose their own limits. But Mattis hits back with a fantastic analogy. While some theories just have standard limits, which is kind of like shooting yourself in the foot, claiming zero perceptual truth is a fatal shot straight to the heart. Why? Because it invalidates its own foundation. If Gödel had assumed the axioms of arithmetic were fully complete just to prove they were incomplete, he would have totally refuted himself. If our perception has zero relation to reality, we have absolutely no justification to take evolutionary biology seriously in the first place.
Moving on to part three, fixed simulations.
Since the logical argument is tangled in a paradox, we have to look under the hood at the actual computer models used to support these anti-realist claims. Hoffman's original simulations assumed incredibly rigid conditions, basically giving organisms single, fixed tasks. But researchers like Mattis and Burke adjusted those rules. They wanted to reflect a much more realistic environment featuring multiple, varied tasks.
I mean, in the real world, organisms don't just do one thing forever. They forage, they hide from predators, they mate, and they navigate, all at the same time. When the simulations were rerun under these updated realistic rules, the results completely flipped. Suddenly, truth-based perception became highly advantageous for survival.
Which brings us to part 4, co-evolution.
This is a massive breakthrough in the critique. Environments aren't just static background noise. Organisms and their environments constantly co-evolve. Imagine a population of sparrows eating worms, and they zero in on the biggest worms because that gives them the highest fitness payoff. But then, a minor mutation occurs in the ecosystem, and the big worms completely die out, leaving only the small ones. If a sparrow was using a strict interface strategy, meaning it only perceived a simple binary eat or don't eat signal based on the old environment, it would literally starve to death. But if a sparrow perceived actual, truthful, factual data about the varying sizes of all the worms, even if that data seemed completely useless at the time, it acts as an evolutionary insurance policy. That truth-seeking sparrow adapts faster, and it survives. When researchers actually crunch the simulation numbers with unpredictable jumps in the environment, the outcome is stunning. Instead of going extinct, veridical or truth-based perception absolutely thrives. In half of the repetitions, the share of truth-based perception stabilized well above 80%. The math clearly shows that adapting to a chaotic, unpredictable world requires a very strong anchor in objective reality. But what if the environment doesn't jump drastically? What if it just mutates really, really slowly over time? Well, even under those incredibly slow conditions, truthful perception survives and never hits absolute zero. This directly crushes the claim that veridical perceptions are so unfit they never even make it onto the playing field. The evidence we have here severely pushes back on the speculative idea that we live in a completely fabricated interface.
Finally, part 5, does fitness beat truth?
So where does this leave us in this grand debate? Well, the evidence strongly suggests that perceptual realism is actually a highly resilient survival tool. Yes, our senses are absolutely tuned for survival. I mean, we don't see infrared light or hear dog whistles because, frankly, we don't need to. But that doesn't mean our entire reality is an illusion. Capturing vital, structurally accurate aspects of the objective world provides a massive evolutionary advantage. If our perception was purely an interface, it would throw everything from consciousness studies and AI to fundamental physics into absolute chaos. But the modern scientific consensus, backed up by these updated models, reminds us that we have to distinguish between useful evolutionary abstractions and actual objective data.
Joseph Mattes perfectly summarizes his entire critique with this profound mic drop kind of thought. Fitness does not necessarily beat truth. Fitness bears truth. Evolution doesn't have to erase reality to keep us alive. It actually carries reality forward. To survive in a complex, constantly shifting universe, you have to understand the actual shape of it, at least to a highly functional degree. Our senses might not show us absolutely all of reality, but they are firmly plugged into it. So the next time you look at the world around you, ask yourself, are your senses merely an illusion, or are they a deeply tested evolutionary interface that is firmly rooted in the truth? If evolution shaped us for survival, then the world we experience is the exact reality that helped our ancestors thrive in a deeply tangible universe. Thank you so much for joining us on this explainer. As we wrap up this journey for the Cosmic Librarian, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so please comment below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, enable notifications, and join us for future explorations into consciousness, science, philosophy, perception, and the ultimate mysteries of reality. See you next time.